I appreciate you spending time with me this morning. This is Caleb. I'm going to be recording the Powerful Words with Caleb this morning, as Patriot Subbox is no longer recording them. I hope it comes out well. I'm going to share the screen with you and then play that for you as well.
But I can make an explosion. This is my fight song. Hey. Take back my life song. Hey. Prove I'm alright song. My power's turned on. Coming right out of me song. I'll do my fight song. And don't really care if nobody else can hear. Cause I've still got a lot of fight left in me. So
Imagine that. Great song.
How are you? How are you, Caleb?
I'm awesome. How about you?
I'm all right.
Just all right, huh?
Kind of frustrated, but I'm okay. We'll get. Huh? I'm sorry.
Well,
what?
no, I think that's a wonderful thing. Thank you for giving me the appropriate segue to open up today's Powerful Words with Caleb. The reality is this is what happens when we get caught up in the world, when we look at the circumstances, when we begin walking by sight and forget to walk by faith. We're not supposed to watch the storm, Deb. We're supposed to watch the sleeping Jesus on the pillow in the boat with us. We're supposed to watch him and walk on the water. And that's the objective, is to not get all caught up in this. I know that it is the 10,000-pound weight. It is the shiny object. It is the squirrel. But unless, let me just give you an analogy. If you're carrying around a pack every day, and your cares and worries, weigh a pound each, and you put 20 cares and worries in that pack, who gave you those burdens? You did.
I did.
And so the reality is the Lord tells us to come before him and that he will take those burdens from us and give us back in exchange, which is an enormously unfair exchange. But I'm going to take it. He gives us back the peace that surpasses all worldly understanding. And so we get this gift of peace that we look at the world and it just doesn't get to us anymore. And the reality is which is more appropriate time to have joy? When you're celebrating and everybody's happy and everybody is their glass is full and their punch bowl is full and they have great jobs, or in the midst of trials, being able to pull out that joy and say, look, I'm going to have joy in spite of the circumstances, because I'm going to walk by faith. I'm going to look upon that day when I'm going to get a glorified body to match with this spirit that I've already been given. And it's never going to rot. I'm never going to get old. And I'm going to be able to spend the rest of eternity with the Lord. Which one gives you more joy, the things in this world or that day that you're waiting for?
The day I'm waiting for.
And I hear you. I'm sorry I don't mean to be the rebuke machine.
Oh, that's okay. I need the rebuke. I need the encouragement.
Well, let's be honest. This world is the big shiny object. It is designed to do exactly what it's doing to you, Deb. It's designed to do that. And the reality is what it's supposed to do is through that maelstrom, through that chaos, through that overwhelming bag of bricks that's given to you every day, it's supposed to force you to the Lord, because your pack gets too full. And you have to go to him and say, Lord, take this from me. Take this from me and give me peace. And so it's designed perfectly to do what it does. And I'll point toward the book of James. You'll see exactly that you're going through exactly what this world was designed to do to you. It says, my brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith worketh patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting nothing. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given to him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering, for he that wavereth in is like a wave of the sea driven with the wind and tossed. So the reality is that's a gift that the Lord gave you. He gave you the privilege of coming in with that great big heavy pack on, like you're wearing right now, and spending some time with him and just laying at the foot of his throne and saying, Father, I don't want this anymore. Can you please take this from me? Can you give me back that peace that surpasses all worldly understanding? And that's what he calls us to do. And then he says, look, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. Let your moderation be known unto all men. The Lord is at hand. Be careful for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are honest, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are good report. If there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Those things which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me, do, and the God of peace shall be with you. So we have to walk in that faith. We have to physically say, look, this life is hard. And the reason why it's hard is because God trusts me with a certain amount of tasks that I've got to do, which are very heavy. But he never leaves me. And I can go before him in the throne, and I have the privilege of walking in there and saying, Dad, I've had enough. I've had enough. I need to lay this down before you, Father. I need to be rid of this. I need to not be so caught up in the world. I need to not be so worried about all this stuff. And the whole reason behind this is that when you go out, Deb, if you're filled with cares and worries and burdens, you're going to have a hard time getting to John 3:16, which is the purpose of your day. And John 3:16 says very clearly, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. He that believeth on him is not condemned, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. And this is the condemnation, that light has come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. For everyone that doeth evil hateth the light, and neither cometh to the Lord, lest his deeds should be reproved. You're a child of the light. You're made to go out and express joy in the midst of troubles, and that expression of joy in the midst of troubles lures people in that are suffering and don't have a place to take that upset. And so it's a wonderful quality of joy that we've been given that attracts those folks that don't know Jesus. And so I've heard you full of joy, and I've heard you full of angst, and you don't want to be tossed about on the seas anymore. So take that pack into the Lord and lay it down to this throne. In fact, let's go there right now. Folks, let's go there together. Father, I come before your throne. I'm going to come hand in hand with all my brothers and sisters. We're so grateful to be able to come in here, Lord, and share our cares and worries and prayers with you. We love you. Bless your name. It's just a joy to come before you. We're so thankful. And Lord, I take off my pack right now. I'm going to take these straps off, and I've got a bunch of cares and worries, and I'm going to lay it before your throne, Lord. And Lord, thank you for taking that from me. I don't need it. I don't want it. I don't want to share it with anyone. But please give me back that peace, that wonderful peace that comes with visiting with you. And I thank you for doing that, Lord. And Father, this world's out of control, and we know it's going to be out of control. Your word says it. And so let us go forth into the world and understand that it's going to be crazy. And we need to develop our faith, our courage, and our understanding in your unfolding will and your plan for humanity. That's what armors us up against this craziness. Let us go forth and bring back a crop 10,000-fold for your storehouses, sir. And we love you, we praise you, and we thank you for a wonderful day to be spent together honoring your name. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen. So, folks, yes, there is angst in the world. Yes, there is deception in the world. Yes, there is. But there's also discernment in the world. There's also love. There's also forgiveness, because all of us have been betrayed. And we know that the only thing that gets us over betrayal is forgiveness. Because, you know, they're not gonna make it right. They've deceived us. It's gotta be something that's made right in our own hearts. And so we have to develop the capacity. We have to get stronger, folks. These are desperate times. You're talking about war times. I've got people out on Twitter, these battle-hardened veterans out there who are saying, look, we can taste the wind, and we see some really difficult times coming our way. And if these folks with their intuition are seeing it, then we ought to be getting ready. And we ought to stay in a state of readiness and preparedness, not just physically, not just, logically, but emotionally. We've got to be emotionally ready. We have to be ready with our faith. We have to be ready to answer the call and to defend our faith and give an answer for the joy that's in our heart, the hope that's in our heart. And that's what's important. Now, saying that, on my show, I bring forth these frightening realizations of the news, and the truths, the historical truths that we face. And I don't do that to frighten you. I do that to armor you up. I do that because if you know the truth, like Patriot Soapbox really tries our best to give you every day, then you can make some sound decisions for your own families, for your own lives. You can see the false word out there and say, hey, that false word, I'm not going to even pay attention to it. I'm not going to even give it, one look. I'm not even going to allow it into my life. And that's called closing a pathway or an avenue of approach, or taking away a foothold for the enemy to get a foothold in your life. And the Bible speaks about it very clearly. Don't give the enemy footholds in your life, because he'll take them. Remember, he's wandering around like a roaring lion looking whom he might kill, steal, and destroy. He wants all of us to be destroyed. There's no friendship there. These people that serve him, they're not friendly. They may be charismatic, they may be pretty, they may be in a nice package, but they want your destruction. And they want your destruction at their advantage, at their ability to consume what you were. And they'll consume your innocence, they'll consume your joy, and you need to be aware of that so that you're prepared to go out into this world and take advantage of the power and the authority that the Lord has given you. Now, the first thing I want to share this morning, because I need to set the perspective, is let me get to this page here, and I'm going to share this for you, because this is the mindset we need to apply this morning. Let me share the screen. Boop, boop, boop. Share that. Share this. A little bit of this. A little bit of that. There we go. Okay, I'm going to share this one here. There we go. Okay, you should see it's coming up on your screen there. Okay, this is a crystal cave in southern Mexico. Where does the cave start? Where's the crystal? Where's the 10,000th facet of the crystal? This is what we're facing, folks. We're facing the gaping maw of an enemy, and it's got a million faces, but it's still all the same cave. It's still all the same pathway to darkness. Each facet, each branch we look at, each face that we look at, we need to understand they're all part of the same team. It's very easy to get caught up and be overwhelmed when you look at all of these different pieces of information and you look at them as being separate. They're not. They're part of this dangerous, jagged edge, gaping maw of crystalline that will eat you up, and these caves are probably the most dangerous caves in the world. It's an amazing sight, isn't it? So, why did I share that with you? Let's share what else I'd like to. Let me take this share down here for a second. I want to share. Let's see. Okay. Let's see if I can make this big. I'll make it big. There we go. Okay, let me see if I can share this. It's there it is, coming up. Cool. Okay. This is what we need to really understand. We look at it and we gloss over it, and we never dissect it and give it full understanding. And because of that, we don't have the full understanding that we need to gather how deep and how secret and how hidden and how complex this enemy is. And General Flynn is telling us we need to know our enemy. So let me educate you to this enemy. Unlike most previous court factors, Rothschild managed to bequeath his wealth and established an international banking family through his 5 sons, who established businesses in London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples. The family was, now listen to this sentence, the family was elevated to noble rank in the Holy Roman Empire and the United Kingdom. Now, in their family crest, you can see that. You see the Holy Roman Empire eagles on top of the 3 heads. You've got, Satan always mimics the Lord. There's 3 heads, and you've got the feathers from France, and I think the other one, I don't know exactly where it's from on the other end, but we've got the Holy Roman Empire in the middle, and then again on the shield, you've got the Holy Roman Empire eagle, and you've got the Lion of London, of England. So that shows that the Rothschilds are royalty, and they're warriors. They have helmets, and they are part of England and the Holy Roman Empire. And then you see in both hands that there are 5 arrows. Well, the Bible says that arrows are your children that are fired out into the future. They extend your life. Those are the 5 arrows of Meyer Amschel's children. Those are the 5 sons: Concordia, Industria, Integrity. So this is their crest, and their crest tells us right off, and we've missed it because we haven't seen that they're part of the UK royalty, they're part of the Holy Roman Empire royalty, but overall, they are the empire. So now we need to understand, we understand a little more closely what we're dealing with. We're dealing with empire. We're dealing with long-lasting empire that has put itself into the realms of royalty in both the Holy Roman Empire and the UK. So they sit in the seats of Parliament. They sit in the seats of the Queen. He is a baron of Germany. He's a Rothschild. He's a lord of court. He's a part of the British royalty. And so we need to understand that's what we're facing, you know, and the queen and the prince are just princesses and princes of the Holy Roman Empire. They report to the empire. And to be honest, the Rothschilds are higher on the food chain of the Roman Empire because they are the corporation. And the corporation is higher than royalty, it's higher than the state, and it reports directly to the emperor. So looking at that, we now have a context for understanding that we didn't have before. That now we know that Rothschild, these folks are royalty, folks. They're royalty. They're royalty all around the world. They own every country. They own all the central banks. They own all the debt. They own all your military funding. They own all the money for your roads. You know what they do with us with regard to the Fed? Let me give you an example of how much control they have. Do you know when we pay taxes to the IRS, it goes to the Fed takes the money and ships it overseas, and then the Fed says, okay, this is how much you're going to be given back to use for your roads and bridges and military, and we're going to charge you a percent. So now they've taken our tax dollars and then they loan it back to us to build our military. They loan it back to us to build our bridges. They loan it back to us to build our roads. And now you've got politicians who say, well, wait a minute, where's my chunk? The money comes back in, they go, well, I'm going to slip a little here and slip a little there, and guess what? Guess who's going to build the road? My cousin Eddie and his company. And guess who's going to build the military ships? Well, my husband is a VC for a shipbuilding corporation. And guess who's going to build the new plant? Well, you know, my second cousin Edna is a huge real estate mogul, and she's going to, you know, do the real estate deal for the new plant. You see what's going on. You know, we've been had to the extent that these folks have plugged themselves in as royalty. They've been elevated to royalty. And so they are barons and lords and dukes. And I tell you what, the folks in England will understand this a lot more than we will. In days of old, when you were a duke or you were a baron or you were a landowner, the people that lived on your land were your responsibility. They were your poor people. They were your workers. And that's how they view the world, folks. They view the world as if they're dukes and barons and earls of you know, Westshire, and you live in Westshire, so you belong to them. Do you get it? It's hard for us to understand that. It's hard for us to comprehend that. But we need to understand that that's what they're pushing for. They're pushing for the same old monarchy that we've escaped throughout history. That's what they want back. The Holy Roman Empire with King Charlemagne and all of his dukes and earls and you know, local lords. That's what they want. They want you to pay homage to them. They want the taxes to go directly to them, and then they pay it to the empire. Are we grasping this? Your cousin Eddie, I'm sorry. People picked up on that cousin Eddie pretty thin. I apologize. The things that come into my brain housing group, I mean, sometimes I wonder. Sometimes. Okay, let's see what I'm going to share with you next. I bet you something wonderful. Doubt it. Probably some frightening corruption standing before us that we never even saw. Okay, so when we see this global elite, this prince of the Holy Roman Empire, this is a prince of the Holy Roman Empire. He is not above Rothschild. Rothschild is above him, okay? Because Rothschild is the corporation, right? And Rothschild reports directly to the emperor. This is a public face of the empire. He's a good, obedient subject of the empire. He has to bow to the city of London, to the Lord Mayor, because that's empire. Global elites announce a great reset plan, and it's even more radical than the Green New Deal. Now, you folks are you look at this and you go, outraged. That's just totally outrageous. I'm completely outraged. Hang on. We know. I got my eyes on Jesus. This is part of the storm. I get it. I see the Green New Deal. I need to understand the Green New Deal. I need to understand this reset. Why are they doing this reset? Okay, folks, they're doing this reset for money purposes. This reset will give them $12 trillion toward the $30 trillion that they need to launch the UN NWO by 2030. Now, I have proof of that over and over again, but let me just give you some cursory proof to it. Joe Biden says we have 9 years, right? Right? 9 years is 2030, okay? The Green New Deal, when they launched it, it was written in Britain in 2007 because that's where their policies come out of. It was written in the streets of London like communism was, and like all these things are written, evolutionism, they're all written there in London. And it was when they threw out the first Green New Deal, they said we have 15 years, right? 2030. And then you got, what is her name? AOC coming out a couple years ago saying, we have 12 years and we need $30 trillion. Isn't that what they said the Green New Deal was going to cost? Isn't that coincidental that it's the same time and the same exact amount of money that they need in the UN to launch the New World Order? Isn't that coincidental? It just blows my mind out. How could that possibly be where it'd be so coincidental with the same exact time and same exact amount of money? That's how they play us, folks. They don't want to tell you the truth. And when somebody comes at you, and I'm going to throw this at you today, today's powerful word is forgiveness, because forgiveness is what overrides the deception, the betrayal. But this is betrayal. They're saying there's a climate change, the world's going to die, we're going to set loose, Chicken Little, and we need $30 trillion. It's going to cost you $30 trillion. No, you just need it. You need it. You got to have it. You're gonna drown. Meanwhile, I'm buying a $16 million mansion right next to the ocean, but you're going to drown. Okay? So, when we see this stuff, we need to realize where it's coming from. These people are playing us. That's all they can do. When somebody begins to lie at the original point of delivering their argument, you can just suspect that every single thing that comes out of their mouth from that point on is also going to be a lie. It's just human nature, and it's also the power of logic. So when we look at this article now, let's look at it in a little bit different terms, because now I want to know the players. I know that you're lying to me here, but I want to see who's lying to me. So now I see the first player that's involved in this is the World Economic Forum. So liar, okay. Liar number 2, United Nations. Look at that. Liar. Okay, liar number 3, United Kingdom. Liar. Okay, United States. Liar. International Monetary Fund. Liar. Multinational corporations. This is a great reset. It's all one big lie, and these are your liars. They just listed themselves so that you now know your enemy. Our own government is listed in that list. Doesn't that freak you out? I'm gonna come back to Deb for a minute, because I need her to understand something. The refrigerated trucks brought to your state capitals or next to your hospitals is a lie. It's a manufactured story. I looked into it in Phoenix because it was the first place that they announced it in, was in Phoenix. I contacted my representative and I showed him the material. My representative, one of the Arizona representatives, I got to give him some credit, man. And Andy Biggs, he went to the MSM. He figured out who posted that story, and it was the mayor of Phoenix. And he went and made the mayor of Phoenix retract that false flag story. There were no refrigerated trucks. It was a lie. Why are they lying, folks? Why are they lying? So that led me on a chase. And I'll get into the chase here pretty soon, because the reality is what are we here for? We're here to be citizen journalists, right? We're here to be patriots. We're here to empower ourselves with information. If we get caught in the first lie, in the first betrayal, and we get snuffed out, we get our enthusiasm taken, we get our encouragement lost, folks, come on. Time for us to get a little bit, you know, I'm not saying, but eventually you move past the rank of private. You know, eventually you do. And then you begin to look upon the thing and say, I'm going to take a little fresh look at that because that's a lie. Well, I got to give it to that representative. He stood up and he brought it to the mayor of Phoenix, a big city, and said, look, you're lying and they need to stop you lying. You need to stop lying. And she pulled the story. She pulled the story. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that powerful? Isn't that how our government is supposed to work? Aren't we supposed to be the stewards and stewardesses of this nation? Aren't we supposed to say, hey, no, I don't like that. I'm not doing it. I'm not taking it. I'm going to come up there and I'm going to use my power of redress and I'm going to protest. And guess what? You're going to see Caleb's face sitting outside your office every day for the next 12 days until you get it. And they're going to be like, whoa, dude, you've been calling us every day for 365 days now. I don't want you outside my office. What can I do for you? I have become the gadfly. You know? Isn't that why they killed Socrates? Because he was the gadfly. He kept biting him in the butt. He kept biting him. He wouldn't leave him alone. He kept saying, but what about this? But what about this? But wait a minute. You're really lying here. You're lying there. You're lying over there. What's your problem? So that's how representative government works. The representative works for me. He doesn't like working for me. But you know what? That's why you get $180,000 a year, you know, because you got to put up with Caleb. You just got to put up with Caleb. And guess what? You know, the representative goes, I'm moving to a non-Caleb state. I have declared victory, you know. They'd rather go somewhere else than deal with me. And that's, you know, that's what we're here for, right? So now I know my enemy. I've got WEF, I've got UN, I've got the United Kingdom, I've got the United States, I've got the International Monetary Fund, and I also understand that all of those are owned by Corporation Rothschild, by Monarch Rothschild, okay? They've bought us, folks. They own us. To them, you know, if we're to look through their eyes, they look at us as employees. They look at us as human assets, okay? Human assets. Now that raises a very difficult problem. Then when they look at us as assets, they look at us, at our children as assets. They look at our wives as their assets. They look at themselves as lords of the manor, dukes and earls of the region. And your wife is very comely. She is now mine. That's what we're dealing with, folks. We need to understand that we're dealing with a completely different level of greed than we've embraced in this country. We need to understand the evil that is driving these folks, and the evil that's driving them is entirely self-related. Okay, I'll go past my bookmarks. I'll go to the Q map. We jump on this Q map here. 4589, July 2nd, 2020. Possible Epstein was a puppet? Heck yes. Not the main persons of interest? Heck yes. Financing by who or what foreign entities? Well, we just saw the corporation. We just saw the WEF. We just saw the United Nations. We saw the UN. We saw the United States. We saw the IMF. Now we know what the F is right there. You know, primary gatherer, blackmail, unelected politicians, dignitaries, royalty, Hollywood, influencers, Wall Street, and other financial top level players, we're putting our top people on it, other high profile industry specific people, etc. Feed an addiction, a controllable addiction, okay? Their addiction is for human assets, for greed, for money. Maxwell family background. Now I'm gonna do this right today, folks. I'm gonna do this thing right. When you leave here, you are going to be like, I'm moving to a Caleb-less state. I've had enough. I'm moving to somewhere. And I'm not telling Gabe, don't give my address. Don't give my telephone number. Don't want him calling. Robert Maxwell's history, intel agency, wealth, classifications. Sometimes it's the people in the background that are of greater significance. Well, we'll get to that. But we're going to go on a little venture of my own, which I'm going to take you down a different lane for a while because I can. In my authority given unto me by me, I will take you down this other path because General Patton, remember, he just mysteriously just died in a car wreck, right? After he retired. And he really wasn't their favorite, you know. He really didn't. He didn't get along with most politicians, you know, because he was a truth teller, you know. So what do we see from him? I mean, let's look at some of his quotes. He said, "Let's keep our boots polished, bayonets sharpened, and present a picture of force and strength to the Red Army. It's the only language they understand and respect." End quote. Wait a minute. Peace through strength? I mean, Patton said the same thing. Quote, "Oh, George, you've been so close to this thing so long, you have lost sight of the big picture." End quote. He saw the Red Army. He saw communism as the biggest threat. Quote, "I understand the situation there. The Soviet supply system is inadequate to maintain them in a serious action such as I could put to them. They have chickens in the coop and cattle on the hoof. That's their supply system. They could probably maintain themselves in a type of fighting I could give them for 5 days. After that, it would make no difference how many million they have, and if you wanted Moscow, I could give it to you. They lived on the land coming down. There is insufficient left for them to maintain themselves going back. Let's not give them time to build up the supplies. If we do, then we have had a victory over the Germans and disarmed them, but we have failed in the liberation of Europe. We have lost the war." End quote. What does Antifa look like right now? Chickens trying to build a garden so they can grow a tomato. They've got no supplies. We have to destroy them now before they build supply lines. Quote, "I've never seen an army at any time, including the German Imperial Army of 1912, as severe discipline as exists in the Russian army. The officers, with few exceptions, give the appearance of recently civilized Mongolian bandits." End quote. What are we seeing in the communist group? Quote, "In my opinion, the American army as it now exists could beat the Russians with the greatest of ease because while the Russians have good infantry, they are lacking in artillery, air tanks, and the knowledge of use of combined arms, whereas we excel in all three of these. And it should be necessary to fight the Russians. The sooner we do it, the better." End quote. Come on, mouse. I don't want you to read this. Quote, where although room existed, the Jews were crowded together to an appalling extent, and in practically every room there was a pile of garbage in one corner, which was also used as a latrine. So he was not a proponent of the Jews. He was pretty mean to them. And, you know, I don't agree with any of this stuff that he brought up, because he was just ferocious, you know. You guys can read that stuff. I'm not going to read it. He was very anti-Semitic, and that freaked me out. I didn't know that about him. Quote, I doubted the expediency of blowing up factories because the ends for which the factories are being blown up, that is, preventing Germany from preparing for war, can be equally well attained through destruction of their machinery, while the buildings can be used to house thousands of homeless persons. Now, what a dichotomy of humanity. On one hand, he's being anti-Semitic and putting down the Jews, and on the other hand, he's saying, look, we should leave these German buildings so the people can have a place to stay. Quote, I'm frankly opposed to war criminal stuff. It is not cricket, and it's Semitic. I am also opposed to sending POWs to work as slaves in foreign lands, where many will be starved to death. So the guy had heart, you know, and he called it like it was, and he had enough of the government. He had enough of politics, and they killed him for it. I mean, we can't prove that, but we're pretty sure, you know, that you speak out against the government, you get retired, and you suddenly your car goes off the road while you're going home. Okay. Itching for relief? No, I am not. I wanted to bring this paper, this report back up because folks hadn't gotten this link last week. So I'm just going to drop this link for you. This is the one about Chief Justice Roberts being blackmailed. So I showed that last week. Okay, so eagle on a pearl. Imagine that. Eagle on a pearl. Where have we seen that? Huh. Okay. Caleb's a nut. Why is he showing this? Because we're dealing with the Nazis who've inserted themselves into our own government, folks. We're dealing with the Holy Roman Empire, which was German and Italian. Who fought with the Nazis? The Italians. Who fought with the Nazis? The Pope. Who was on the Nazi side? Italy. Okay? So we're dealing with a German and Italian fascist group, right, who's now has inserted itself through Operation Paperclip so deep into our country's leadership that now they're wearing the eagle and the pearl on their lapel with the scroll of Rome underneath it and thinking we won't see that. Come on, folks. Come on. And when did the Second Reich go to? What do you mean Reichs? There were Reichs? Yes, there were, folks, because we need to understand that. If we're looking at the Third Reich, well, there had to be a first and a second. What was the First Reich? 800 AD. King Charlemagne. You can go all over Europe, and all the major roads are Charlemagne this, Charlemagne that. They're still lauding the Holy Roman Empire, and no wonder the Queen is a princess of the Holy Roman Empire. Europe is the Holy Roman Empire, folks. Do you get it? The Germans were, this was a creation of the Holy Roman Empire to spread empire throughout the world. That means all of Europe. I'm not talking about just Germany, folks. This was a combined effort to take over the world. And we need to change our thinking a little bit to understand our enemy, because what are we thinking about? The WEF, the IMF, the UN, the UK, the United States, they're all prodigies of this empire. It begins to make sense. It makes a lot of sense. When you start putting these two things together, you go, oh, now I see why they're acting that way. Now I get it. It didn't make sense before. when the dog bites, when the bee stings, when you're feeling sad. I simply remember my favorite things, and then I don't feel so bad. Yep. But we got to face this, folks. This is not a time to just, I like cinnamon. Cinnamon makes me feel so much better. No, this is reality time. The Third Reich was from 1933 to 1945. So now we've had the First Reich from 800 to, when did it go to? It went to 1870. No, it went to 1806. 1806, why did it go to 1806? Because that's when Napoleon kicked their butt. That's 1806. That was the end of the Reich, right? Because of Napoleon conquered the Reich, right? Well, who founded Napoleon? The Rothschilds. Now this is getting really weird. Why is that the pot? Okay, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's hurting my brain. Okay, so the First Reich was from 800 to 1806, when they met Napoleon, right? The Second Reich was, go figure, from 1871 to 1918. Wait a minute, that would be the year after World War I started. That'd be 1871. That's when what? Blacks got the right to vote. We've got the Organic Act. We've got the end of the Russian Empire. We've got the Ottoman Empire crumbling. There's about 8 things that happened in 1871. And then you go to 1917, 1918, and there's another 8 things that happened. Folks, this has all been planned. When they've met their objectives, they move on. And so they met their objectives. And 1806 led to 1812. The word 1812 led to the secret Treaty of Verona. 1822 led to President Jackson kicking the bank out of the United States. Why did he kick the bank out of the United States in 1833? Because of this. He saw this. He saw that they were taking over the world, and he didn't want it to happen. And so he paid off our debt and kicked out the bank. What's our POTUS getting ready to do? Pay off the debt and kick the bank out. Hello? I'm a knocking. Okay, so we're aware of the Reichs, right? The collapse of the Weimar Republic and the creation of the Third Reich. So we'll read a little bit about it. With the onset of the Great Depression in 1929, Germany's Weimar Republic was plunged into catastrophic economic freefall. The political repercussions were immediate. The coalition government of Social Democratic Chancellor, wait a minute, Social Democratic, isn't that what our government is? Isn't that what London is? Isn't that what UK is? Isn't that what France is? Isn't that what Germany is? You mean we're sitting on the edge of a socially democratic Weimar Republic? Chancellor Hermann Mueller collapsed, and the Nazis communists saw membership spikes as Germans abandoned more moderate parties. In July 1930, the new chancellor, Heinrich Brüning of the Roman Catholic Center Party, forced through his economic program by resorting to emergency powers. Wait a minute. Okay, I need you guys to get it. I need you to travel with me, if you will, to a modern day where we've suddenly got a virus released around the United States and around the world, and we're suddenly cast into lockdown. You say, lockdown is unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional, how can you do that? Well, how did they do it? They wrote what's called an Emergency Services Act in each state. And that Emergency Services Act declares that the governor has wartime powers when they declare an emergency, and therefore we've released this virus, and there's an emergency, we're taking over, we are given martial law. We're going to say, you are going to wear a muzzle. You're going to wear a muzzle, and you're going to sit at home, and you're going to do what we tell you to do, and you're not going to worship, you're not going to pray, you're not going to sing to the Lord, you're not going to buy bicycles, and you're not going to take your children to the park, because these are emergency powers. Emergency powers. Get that? Folks, happened in 1930. Available under Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution. bypassed our Constitution the same way the Germans did it, the same exact way. And we, duh, unprepared. How unprepared were we? We were so unprepared. We still, our heads are spinning. We're going like, how do they do that? I don't know. I don't know. I'm clueless, brah. Okay, so that's why, Herr Field Marshal Newsom is throwing his weight around California, because he's doing it under, I read the whole entire California Constitution the other day, and I realized that he's using the Emergency Services Act, which the legislature wrote, and the legislature is the only one that can cancel the declaration of emergency. So they're in on it, and they wrote him this Emergency Services Act so that they could do exactly what they did in Germany to the German people. Are we going to let it happen? I want to see how upset our patriots are out in chat that we got rolled over, we got spun around, we got given the betrayal, the German betrayal of 1930, and we didn't even see that left hook coming. We just saw the stars afterward. There you go. No, Newsom is a Nazi criminal. Newsom is a Nazi field marshal who's executing the Nazi plan to create the Fourth Reich. That's it. If you guys don't get it by now, you are not going to get it. Everybody's like, oh my God, I'm turning this guy off. He's out of his mind. Yes, I am. But it's a good place. It's a comfortable place. That's it. They have to cheat. They have to do what they did to the Germans in the 1930s. Hey, Kilo, make sure you put the Nazi or the communist in front of all those descriptors. He is a communist, Nazi, eugenicist war criminal. He's not just an average run-of-the-mill war criminal. He's a billionaire war criminal. Okay, so have I done what General Flynn ordered me to do yesterday? Know your enemy. We are dealing with the Holy Roman Empire, which is not just German. We were fed that stuff. It is not the truth. It is all of Europe. It is all of the world. It's worse than it was, folks, because the Rothschilds have taken over every country, and they did it through their banks. If you go and pull up a list of the banks that the Rothschilds own, you're not going to see. You're only going to see two countries on there that don't belong to them. Well, which countries are those? Iran and North Korea. You know why? Because you have to have a state through which to run your money laundering operations. You have to bring the cash and wash it all. You have to have some launderers, right? There you go. I think don't know what I'm doing is absolutely right. Because don't know, this is the thing. Their plan was not to win the war. If their plan was to win the war, they would have done things completely differently. Uh-oh, I got people blinking things. I'm on a roll. Don't take me on the blinking things. Just tell me what you want. Speak up, Darth Vader.
You want Darth Vader?
There you go. And don't tell me you're my father, because I think I got one bullet left.
I'm out in the garage. I'm getting ready to pack up the car for another culp rally today. But what you were just saying there about the Emergency Powers Act. Okay, Caleb, I've been talking about this here in Washington State because I talked to one of our local representatives. She called and asked for a culp sign. And she was telling me now what they did here in Washington State. The liberals came in and they wrote these egregious Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment legislation proposals, right? and or bills to be passed. And what they did was they started talking about the Cascadia Abduction Zone, Mount St. Helens, Mount Rainier, all of this stuff, putting the idea of fear and doom, and Washington State was going to, fall off into the ocean and explode in volcanoes and all this other stuff. They brought all of the legislators in, the Republicans and the Democrats. And this is coming from someone that I talked to personally about. She's in the legislature. And she was very, very concerned about signing this. And most of the Republicans in the legislature were. So what the Democrats ended up doing was, okay, we'll make a deal with you. We're going to pull a bunch of this stuff out of all of this really nasty anti-Second Amendment stuff, because we know you Republicans support that. You want that. So we'll make a deal with you. You sign this emergency powers legislation, which just happened in the last, I think it was just last year when they signed it here in Washington State. Okay. And so the Democrats, being the Democrats that they are, pulled a few things out of the anti-legislation stuff, the most egregious stuff, left a lot of stuff still in there. We lost all the way around on that deal. We lost more of our Second Amendment rights. We had more rules, regulations, and BS to restrict our Second Amendment rights. And Inslee got his Emergency Powers Act. And that's how they did it here in Washington State.
That's how they've done it in every state. I've gone through to the 6 states or 5 states where the governors have the highest COVID death rates, and they all did the same. They all did it through emergency powers. Folks, they have bypassed your state constitution. That's what they've done. They've written a German document that they looked at what was done in history. They outsmarted us. They went back in history, and they looked at what was done in 1930, and they did the same exact thing, and we just fell for it. Now, does that make you want to get up tomorrow morning or Monday morning and call your state's representatives, Republican and Democrat, and say, look, the Emergency Service Act needs to be ripped up. Ripped up. No more emergency powers. We, the people, are in charge. We're not going to be paupers and serfs and be talked down to by a governor who believes he has kingship wartime powers, which you gave him. You need to rescind the emergency declaration and take away his powers right now and rip that darn thing up. That's it. We got to stop this, nip it in the bud, folks. If we don't nip this in the bud, what's going to happen? It's going to happen here. The same thing that happened in Germany.
Thank you.
We have to do what Patton was saying. We have to take this war to these fools right now while they got no chicken and got no pot. It's time to put boot to some feathered butt.
Thank you for letting me vent there. I will go continue to.
And hey, it's okay. I'm furious. I'm furious. I got so furious that I called the ACLJ. I'm a member of the ACLJ. I saw that Christians couldn't sing in California. I said, that is a violation, and that's what drove me to find this. And I realized that the Germans had done it. I was like incensed. And so I called the ACLJ and I said, look, I'm a member. Folks in California can't sing. And they had already, I guess they'd already thought about looking into it, but they looked into it and they filed suit 2 days ago against Governor Field Marshal Rommel Newsom out there. So, folks, we have to take this country back, and that's how you do it, is you get smart. You see how they did it. You figure out their little Weasley plan, and you go, oh, no, I'm going to stamp on your tail, close the door, and say, nope, time to collar you. Collar you, dog. You want to put a muzzle on me? Guess what? I'm going to collar you and put you back out in the yard. You're a useful little pet for we the people. And what they're doing is folks, if you look at what they're doing with the blacks, you look at what they're doing with the Latinos, the Chinese have gone back and they've instructed these folks on exactly how to take this nation down. And what they're doing is they're combining the Chinese revolution, the Chinese nationalists, when they look, the communists were teamed up with Chiang Kai-shek. Chiang Kai-shek was a good nationalist leader, right? He was for China. He was for the nation of China. You know, the communists joined up with him until they finally saw him winning, and then they stuck in the back. And where'd Chiang Kai-shek go? Chiang Kai-shek went to Taiwan. He's the ruling family. Chiang Kai-shek is the ruling family of China. That's why they won't let us touch Taiwan, because it's the real ruling family of China. When the communists took over, guess where they went? Formosa, which became Taiwan, right? That's why we won't let them bomb Taiwan, because it's the real ruling families of China. Chiang Kai-shek, the nationalists. Now they took the combination of what they did in China. They took what they did in China and they added it to what they did in Germany, and they rolled it out. They said, hey, let's throw this curveball at the Americans. They won't get it because they're so dumb they never look at history. Hello? Are we what they say we are? They always underestimate us. I mean, I can understand. You see me, you look at me, and you go, you know, that guy can't do much of nothing. Boy, were they surprised. You get by the front of the shirt, your belt loop, suddenly you're in the air. Uh-oh. What have I done? I have aroused the beast. and they got fools out there, black fools talking master race stuff like the Nazis right now. Look at this kid Cannon yesterday. He's talking about whites are lesser beings. Oh, come on. When they bring this master race stuff into the mix, if you don't see if you don't see we're being played by the Nazis, you folks got to wake up. You got to wake up. They're using the same playbook. They're putting all the races against each other. You guys fight each other, and we'll just sit on the sideline. That's the Rothschilds, folks. That's what they do. They sit on the sidelines and they go, hey, let's start a war. Let's let them fight it out. Okay, good. We'll loan money to everybody, and we own them. How about that? And by the way, we're going to steal their kids in the middle of the war because we got really, weird inclinations. And so we're going to yank their kids out. And guess what? We can have free kids if we start a war anywhere. So let's start a war all over the world. Let's build these secret insurgency groups so that we can start a war and then we can steal the kids. Are you folks starting to see who we're dealing with? Yeah, Scott. It's called Luciferianism. It's called Satan wants to kill everyone. That's population control, folks. Steal, kill, and destroy everyone. So, in a reflective moment, we've come back to reality. and I have to thank Dead Cat for the passion of that moment. I was like suddenly evoking the spirit of Dead Cat. I was like, I'm going to be Dead Cat. I'm going to throw it at you now. You've got to understand. And for a quiet moment of repose, we're going to sit back down and eat our lunch. No, we're having fun here, folks. But the reality is, that's joy in the midst of troubles, and that's what Jesus said. Look, if we can show joy in the midst of this predicament where we've been duped, yep, I got egg all over my shirt, all over my face, all over everything. Yes, they got me. You got me. Guess what? There's a butt whipping coming. And I get to choose the time and place. More coffee, there you go. Tim's like, I need a bucket. Someone bring me a bucket. I know, that's a different reference. Whole different reference. So now we've understood and we've grabbed up the cudgel of history, and we're going to use it against our enemies because they don't understand that we understand. And now since we understand, we're going to make them understand. Okay, I'm having way too much fun. Stop that guy. He's got problems. Yes, my only problem is I got only 2 hours and way too much fun to have. Okay, so back to this document. Okay. Chancellor Hermann Mueller. Mueller, hey, that's an interesting name. Do we recognize that from somewhere? Mueller? Huh. Nazis, Mueller Nazis. Warren Wilhelm Jr., who changed his name to de Blasio. Wolf Blitzer, who's born in Germany. Are we beginning to get a whiff of what Cable's been selling here? Days later, he dissolved the Reichstag and called for new elections. In September 1930, the new Reichstag was seated with greatly increased representation of what? Both Nazis and communists. Why? Because we are building a godless society in both Nazism and communism, even though get this, I'm going to say this, you guys in the Catholic Church, I'm praying for you big time, because you're going to have to get it. The Pope joined with the Nazis and communists. Why? Godless society. Brüning succeeding in staying in office by attacking sharply to the right and appealing to nationalism. But by early 1932, the number of unemployed in Germany exceeded 6 million. In the election of March 1932, incumbent President Paul von Hindenburg, that's an interesting, the Hindenburg, failed to obtain an upright majority, but in runoff election the following month, he outpolled Nazi leader Adolf Hitler by about 6 million votes. Although Hindenburg wished to replace the moribund Brüning, he was reluctant to elevate Hitler and settled on Franz von Papen. Papen, in an attempt to shore up his parliamentary standing, called a snap election in July 1932. The move was a disaster for Papen's young administration, and the Nazis won 230 seats in the Reichstag. Papen called another election in November 1932, and the Nazis saw a significant share of their vote erode at the expense of steadily growing Communist Party and Alfred Hugenberg's General National People's Party. So what did they do? The political deadlock continued, however, and in December 1932, Hindenburg set aside Papen and replaced him with General Kurt von Schleicher. Papen, who retained some power and influence as a vice chancellor, persuaded Hindenburg to bring Hitler into the government, thereby creating a coalition with a majority in the Reichstag. Having thus attained the goal of reaching the chancellorship legally, Hitler took office on January 30th, 1933. 1933. The democratic interlude of Weimar Republic was effectively at an end. Reichs, folks, they've always been German. Ab urbe condita libre. Let's just bust out with some Roman. Let's just bust into the Roman right after that. The book of the history of Rome, Ab urbe condita, is a monumental history of ancient Rome written in Latin between 27 and 9 BC by the historian Titus Livius, and Livy, as he is usually known in English. The work covers the period from legends concerning the arrival of Aeneas and the refugees from the fall of Troy to the city's founding in 753, the expulsion of the kings in 509, and down to Livy's own time during the reign of the Emperor Augustus. The last event covered by Livy is the death of Drusus in 9 BC. About 25% of the work survives, books 35 through 142. The surviving books deal with the events down to 293 BC from 219 to 166 BC. Okay, so for reference, we've got the Greek Empire, in the 300s BC, who stormed through that whole area and just took over everything from here to, all the way to Eastern Asia. And, Alexander, 33 years old, he's standing there where? In Babylon at 33 years old, and he's weeping because there are no more lands left to conquer. And what's he die of? Dies of a virus at age 33. Trying to do what? Rebuild the Temple of Babel, the Tower of Babel. That's why he died at 33. And at roughly 278 BC, the same time as this book, we've got the Septuagint, which is the Jewish Bible, the Pentateuch and the other prophets, are written into Greek in around 278 BC. So same time frame, right? Same time frame. Well, of this book, there's the fragment of this book that was dated, the year 7 or the year 47, year 48. And this is a page from 668. Now, do you guys believe that this book existed? Ab urbe condita libri? Now, I'm asking chat. Do you believe this existed? You guys believe this book existed, even though there's small smatterings of paperwork left and half the books? I'm not getting any responses. Everybody's out on their own, having their own conversation. I have lost the room. Let me bring it back down. Bring it back down. Let's organize. Let's centralize. Okay, Kilo Given. Thank you, Marine. At least somebody's paying attention to the jarhead in the room. Okay, so there are 20,000 manuscripts of the Bible. 20,000 in existence. And you're going to tell me somebody faked that book. Somebody wrote that book and faked it somewhere between there and here. Say what? Look, folks, look. We have to come to a realization that what they've been feeding us is a protracted lie because they want what? A godless society. They need a godless society because God is the only thing that kicks their butt. Okay, let's move on for a piece. I give you the ID4D, the Identification for Development. Let me share this. You guys are going, what do you give me? You're giving me something you're not showing me. What's your problem, Calvin? I don't know. I'll get over my problem soon. Give me a chance. It's a progressive problem. It's dwindling. Okay, I give you the ID4D. I give you the World Bank. World Bank. Now, when you hear the word bank, who do you think of? I'm gonna give you 5 seconds. Who do you think of when you hear the word bank? What am I on a delay here or something? What do you think? Hey Sharon, I'm polished. I am polished. La vie est belle qu'on n'a pas français aujourd'hui. Mais oui, d'accord. I can go there. I can put on the tie. I can shave them up. I can be friendly. There you go. See, everybody's on it. They're all on it. Rothschild. When we hear the word bank, we need to think Rothschild. Okay, we saw. Everybody, I want to stop you for a second on that thought. We saw yesterday the word bank, right? The Bank of America giving BLM $1 billion. Who gave BLM $1 billion? There you go. Rothschild is the Bank of America. Rothschild is the bank of every bank and a bank and a bank. Because they eventually come to the BIS, they eventually come to the Bureau of International Settlements, which is Rothschild. You're right, Paysewers in there somewhere, but they're even easier to hide than the Rothschilds. But the Rothschilds specialize in that hiding thing. Okay, so now we've got the World Bank. So what are we thinking? We're thinking Rothschild, right? We're going bank. Okay, I see that magic word. So let me see. I got the World Bank. ID4D initiative brings global knowledge and expertise across sectors and countries to tackle this fundamental challenge. It operates in a horizontal initiative across at least 10 different World Bank global practices. Wait a minute. In the Bible, how many kingdoms are there? How many kingdoms are there in the 1978 map, the Club of Rome? 10 different World Bank group global policies. So we know this is biblical. We know that this is the enemy forming up the one world government. Bank group practices and units working on digital development, social protection, social democratic. We're here to change our social indexes, financial inclusion, health, governance, gender, legal, and data. Over the last few years, the agenda has been embedded in the dialogue and projects among those sector teams. The World Bank Group senior management have placed strategic importance on ID4D. There is an active director group which brings a cohesive approach across the different units engaged in this initiative and dedicated program management unit to ensure global and country lessons as advanced and to sustain a cross-sectoral approach to the agenda. Together with development partners, the World Bank is well positioned to advance this critical agenda, giving it multi-sectoral expertise, extensive global footprint, and a range of financial instruments. Well said. Okay, now let's look at these knuckleheads over here. We got the ID4D level advisory council, right? These are the folks who, quote, supposedly are in charge. These are puppet figureheads, right? The World Bank's Identification for Development ID4D high level advisory council, chaired by what World Bank Managing Director of Development Policy and Partnerships, Mari Pangestu, recognizes the enabling and transformational role of identification systems in achieving several of the what? Sustainable Development Goals. Wait. Sustainable Development Goals, isn't that the UN? I thought this was the World Bank. But now we've got the UN goals as the World Bank goals, and advancing progress in many areas such as social protection, women and girls empowerment, financial inclusion, governance, healthcare, digital development, and humanitarian response. The Advisory Council provides strategic guidance to the ID4D initiative and to promote the vision of services and rights for all persons through inclusive and responsible identification systems. Okay, look at all these characters here, folks. If you want to go look them up, what you're going to find is bank, 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 bank. Okay, they're all employees of the bank. Okay, even to the founder of Legatum Center in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Look up Legatum. You're going to find a think tank. You're going to find bank. You're going to find bank. These folks are now, the bank is now adopting the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN Agenda 2030. That's what the Sustainable Development Goals are. Okay, then we go over here, and we are suddenly woken up to the fact that here is Bill and Melinda Gates again. Here's UK, here's the Ministère de l'Économie et des Finances of France. And we, Omidyar, wait a minute, that's PayPal, isn't it? And Australian aid. So now we've got Empire. And suddenly Gates is involved in Empire. Why is that? Because Gates is a Gates, and his auntie was a Gates, his mom was a Gates. They're Maxwell's, folks. Maxwell's. You look at his history, you're going to find the Maxwells. And who was Maxwell? The head of the Fed for San Francisco. Bang. We're gonna find that Gates and Rothschild is synonymous, folks. This is empire. Okay? So now we've got the World Bank involved with the UN, involved with the empire. We've tied them all together. We all know they're the same beast, the same animal. Okay, I'm going to share this. It'll let me share this link with you. I'll share that for you. Now, this is a RFID, a digital ID, right? A digital ID. that is supposed to be rolled out for the entire world by when? 2020. What? We're in the middle of 2020. It can't be rolled out this year. Can it? Can it? Now we've got emergency action services plans that are giving the governor wartime powers to do wartime acts, to do whatever he pleases, he or she pleases. What are we finding? What we're going to find is that right after this election, folks, if they win, I'm going to tell you what, we are going to get vaccinated and chipped before Christmas. Take that to the bank. Okay, World Bank. Wait a minute. I thought the World Bank was a separate entity. It isn't, folks. Look at this. The World Bank Group is a treaty-based relationship with the United Nations that dates back to its founding. And through that relationship, works to build a partnership that supports member states and contributes to effective development outcomes while preserving the distinct mandates of each institution. Over the years, the WBG, as we effectively refer to the World Bank as, collaborated with the UN in nearly every region and sector, and its engagement has deepened since the adoption of the Millennial Development Goals. What the heck, Millennial Development Goals? Wait a minute, isn't that the Fourth Reich? The 1,000-year Reich? The mimic of Christ's millennial reign? Do you mean this is biblical? No way, dude. Why do we want a faithless society if we're going to mimic everything biblical? And now the Sustainable Development Goals. 2015 was a historic year. Oh, by the way, this was the year Obama launched the ISD Global Strong Cities Network.org, which allows this global empire to contact our citizens directly or our leaders in our cities directly and sign agreements with them to develop the Sustainable Development Goals. Obama did that in 2015. Why? Because he's Hitler's grandson. And so is Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel is Hitler's granddaughter. Obama is Eva Braun's grandson. She was given a lucrative job. Please don't send me those orange pings. Just tell me what you want to tell me. You're making me drop the share. Go look at orange pings. Come on. If you guys got something to say to me, say it to me. Okay. So where were we? 2015 was a historic year with the adoption of a new approach to development finance through Addis Ababa Action Agenda. Addis Ababa, where's that? Go look that up. That'll freak you out. 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals, a disaster risk framework in Sendai, and the Paris Climate Agreement. Wait, Paris Climate Agreement? Wait a minute, that's part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals? Hey, folks, I don't do the chat thing. What's going on? Why don't you just tell me what you want me to say? Come on, you're making me drop the share. You're making me drop down. Hang on, I'm going to drop the share and go respond to whoever is chatting with me. Okay, so Q is doing what he always does to me, which is interrupt the show. I'm sorry, Pamphlet. Please forgive me. I was on a roll. I had it buttered and honeyed and everything, man. But from what I understand, I've been reluctant to respond to the chat and realize that there is a new Q. Please forgive me. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Man, when you let a jarhead go, what does he do? What does he do? What does a jarhead do? Look, you told me to take the objective. I took the objective. Yeah, but you forgot your lunch. I just wish people would just get on and just say, hey, I've got a message for you. It's this. Okay, there you go. You don't think Q's listening? When King and Queen of Perversion, Ghislaine Maxwell and Kevin Spacey hung out in Buckingham Palace. This marks the third Spacey accuser to die in 2019? At what point does it become painfully obvious? I guess there's a suicide here. Hang on. Boom, 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 and boom, 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 boom. Okay, we've got an article by the Washington Examiner. Kevin Spacey, accuser dies by suicide. Day after actor posts kill them with kindness video. Wait a minute. That's dated December 26th. So, old hat. A prominent Kevin Spacey accuser died by suicide on Christmas Day. Ari Bain, 47, was married to Norwegian Princess Martha Louise between 2002 and 2017 and accused Spacey of groping him under a table at, come on, changing fonts on me. So what's the deal? It is with great sadness in our hearts that on behalf of the very closest relatives of Ari Ben, must announce that he took his own life today, Ben's manager, Geir Haakonsen, told Norway. So, yeah, they kill people off, folks. They don't want you to know what they don't want you to know. And here's Maxwell sitting on the throne, and you don't get to sit on that throne unless you're part of royalty. So we need to understand that, folks. We need to get that in our brain housing groups. Okay, so let's move on. We're 5 years into implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, a mixed bag of achievements and remaining challenges. In September 2015, when Obama launched these things, the international community adopted the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. So now we know that the IMF, the WEF, the bank, the World Bank, the UK and the United States and the Empire are all part of this. As 193 heads of state signed on to attach the 17 goals and their 169 targets to be monitored by more than 230 indicators, just 10 years now remain in which to implement the 2030 Agenda and achieve the ambitious global goals in a manner that saves the planet. Okay, folks, this is UNNWO. This is Empire. This is Bank. This is Nazis. This is eugenicists. This is transhumanists. This is Freemasons. This is Jewish scientists. They are all joined together to launch the NWO, and they own every country but us. They own half of us. But you're going to see as we go along here, that's where Maxwell came into the mix. And that's why Maxwell died. Okay? Billions to trillions led to the creation of Banks Group Maximizing Finance for Development Initiative, which adopted the cascade approach in order to mobilize private resources and create markets for private participation. In 2019, the International Finance Corporation, okay, we got another face, another facet of the crystal. You know, we're going to the crystal cave. We now see the IFC and we see the IBRD, so they're part of it. The IDA, part of it. The bank group, the World Bank Group, right? 2012, the bank group adopted reforms that help client countries accelerate inclusive and sustainable growth, invest in human capital, and strengthen resilience in order to attain the institution's twin corporate goals and help achieve various SDGs, incorporating the bank group twin goals of ending extreme poverty and promoting shared prosperity into SDG 1 and SDG 10, including various SDGs in the bank group scorecard, combined with a global picture structure which to a large extent mimics the SDGs, allowed the World Bank Group to continue down the path it embarked upon in these reforms. Okay, we know that now the China and the BRI, the Belt and Road Group, is part of the UN development plan, the Agenda 2030. So China is part of bank, you know, Freemasons, Luciferians, Nazis, communists. They're all the same group, folks. Amir Attaran. Okay. Interesting characters we're beginning to see. Well, these are the folks that are sitting on the board that created this whole UN 2030 agenda. And who are they sitting on this board with? Well, several of your well-knowns, of course, the Bill and Melinda Gates, right? Taran has a diverse career as a scientist, lawyer, scholar, and advocate for public health, human rights, environmental protection. So this guy was instrumental in writing these 2030 goals. He's a Harvard WHO commissioner. He helped write the blueprint for global HIV and AIDS pandemic. And he also likes to sue people to force them into social compliance. 2016, Taran filed a complaint to the Canadian Human Rights Commission alleging that the federal government's Canada Research Chair program discriminated against women, visible minorities, Aboriginal people, and the persons with disabilities. Look, folks, this guy is one of the members that's helping them plan the assault on America. Because what he's doing is he's playing the racial groups, the native groups, everybody against the government, trying to bring it down or bring it into line. And Taran brought legal challenge after CRC program's decade-long failure to honor a settlement agreement signed by the government of Prime Minister Stephen Harper, setting firm employment equity targets for these four groups. So he forced Canada to accept diversity rules, and he pushed it through his puppet, Justin Trudeau. Bang. Jeff Sachs, in the world-renowned economics professor, best-selling author, innovative educator, and global leader in what? Sustainable development. He is widely recognized for his bold and effective strategies to address complex challenges, including debt crises, hyperinflation, the transition from central planning to market economics, the control of AIDS, malaria, and other. Well, okay, two of these guys have been involved with the AIDS. They've been involved with the diseases, the escape from extreme poverty, the battle against human-induced climate change. He is the director of the UN's Sustainable Development Solutions Network, a commissioner of the UN Broadband Commission for Development, and an SDG advocate for UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres from 2021 to 2018. Sachs served as special advisor to who? UN Secretary General for Kofi Annan. What did Kofi Annan do? He started the UN Global Fund. The UN Global Fund, which who oversees that? Bill Gates.
Ram, if U.S. intel legal spies on presidential candidate, presidential elect, Republican Congress, Republican Senate, and news friendlies, etc. So that was something we knew here that no one else knew back in 2017. So we've been on this a long time. I mean, here is the chart right out of the OIG report that shows these government officials had all this network of conversations leaking with the media. And so, that's part of the game they play to be able to sell a hoax. Is you got to make, once it's in the paper, in fact, they use those stories as evidence for the FISA judges that the information was legit, because look, it's in the Washington Post and the New York Times and BuzzFeed. So anyway, just a little rundown memory lane there. So another thing to remember here is that this is from August of 2018. Barack Obama was never called to testify to Mueller's investigation. Mueller investigating Russian collusion. Why would Mueller not contact Barack Obama? Barack Obama was the back channel between the FBI, the DOJ, and Steele. Why wouldn't Mueller seek testimony? Well, I think we know the answer to that question. So another thing to remember is Wiseman, who was the lead attorney, arguably was the real Mueller on the special counsel. He was kept in the loop on the dossier, a source said, while he was chief of the criminal fraud division. So he was then assigned to the Mueller team. So again, another one of these situations where they use one of their little crooked chess pieces, and they give him the information they need, and then they move him from the criminal fraud division, where he saw what he needs to see, over to the Mueller team. So he would know what documents they need to get and which they definitely don't want to get, and exactly what he needs to do. So, you know, this seems to be a pattern. You guys see the pattern?
Yeah.
So then we had this story come out, a new Q post, 4582. And it was a story, the FBI Crossfire Hurricane Unit watched Trump the day he took the oath of office. So what this was about was that, again, thank you, Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, he, you know, with their slow roll, and I would say strangely strategic slow roll of emails on his FOIA, the Judicial Watch FOIA requests, we find out, again, pretty redacted, but by Inauguration Day, the FBI had reversed its decision to close the case on retired Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, Mr. Trump's National Security Advisor. Agents were examining his phone calls during the transition with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. And then 3 days later, Mr. Strzok would travel to the White House to interview Mr. Flynn, who would plead guilty in December 2017 to lying. The Trump Justice Department moved in May to drop the case, citing undisclosed FBI files. So again, this is like, you know, known to us like like a headache known to us, but to other people, the normies are finding this out and finding like piles and piles of evidence. So it's not just one person stating it. So then Q also was talking about the C-19 COVID. And so in 4583, Q asks, what would be the primary purpose of inflating the numbers? Who benefits the most? Pro-American versus anti-American, infiltration, all assets deployed, election, not virus. And we'll talk about this more later. But, you know, this link to Emerald Robinson, who's a great reporter, who said, sources inside Trump administration confirms to me that the CDC has been misreporting the data for coronavirus to inflate the numbers. Well, I'll tell you right now, and we've talked about this a million times on this show, you guarantee that the most effery is going to be happening in states that have the highest elector as far as the presidential election, right? And the most number of Congress people. So Florida is a very key state. I know Rick knows that basically if a Republican president does not win Florida and Texas, pretty much they don't really have a path to recovery from that.
Yeah, there's a saying here. And okay, there's a corridor from Tampa to Orlando which is called Interstate 4 that runs right between those two cities and also runs right through Orlando. There's a saying, as I-4 goes, so goes Florida.
Right, and they're trying to float this idea that Biden can win Florida. Plus, you got the Republican convention's going to be in Florida, and they don't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk more about Florida here a little bit. But I was just trying to kind of like make you focus a little on this map, because the states that Republicans possibly could win that have the higher number of representatives, electors, they're the ones that the Democrats are going to be all over. And we all know Eric Holder and Barack Obama have teamed up again, and they are all over the census, and they are all over the Electoral College stuff. All over it. They have a boot camp going to have minions. And we talked about that a couple of times. So then sort of in the same vein, Q showed us this, Andrew Bostom, who's showing the comparison here of regular deaths from influenza in previous flu seasons, and then the COVID death rate for this flu season. And we had talked about, we'd actually looked at this. Remember that when we went over to the CDC website to look at the fact that they track every flu season, and that not all flu seasons of just regular flu can be really bad. So, here we are with this. This is from the state of Texas, a state where they're saying, of course, that it's really bad. And again, I bring your attention here. Texas is becoming more and more blue along the border, mainly in some of the cities. And they've had a big effort going there called, I think it's, Turn Texas Blue or whatever it's called. And all kinds of shenanigans going on in Texas. You guys in Texas, you guys, I know that you feel like you're, the most conservative state. You got to keep an eye on what's going on, man. I thought I lived in the only conservative county in Illinois until it wasn't. And as I've mentioned before, my grandmother from Missouri, who never lived in Illinois, was a voter in our county after she died. So, it's not always what you think it is. And remember, Florida and Texas are both whose territory? The Bush family, right? And we know they're out there. They have all these groups spending a lot of money with this Lincoln Project and stuff, putting videos out, Trump, Republicans against Trump, never Trumpers, whatever.